So let's talk about something else that's been going on with recent releases, and in fact, the news part of the news for this week. They talk a lot about sectors, right, in Warhammer. That's nothing new for sci-fi fans, right? All of our sci-fi is divided up into sectors. We've got quadrants, sectors, zones, whatever. In Warhammer, typically, sectors refer to places where lots of bad stuff is happening. Typically for the Imperium, but not always involving the Imperium. So Games Workshop will say, okay, there's a new conflict going on in this sector between, the Blood Angels and the Tyranids or something. And then they'll give it a name like a war zone or whatever sector it's in, and then they'll release a bunch of books about what's going on there. So you'll get lore, you'll get fiction, you'll get little short stories and bits like that. You'll get new updated rules for the factions that are involved. So it's a cool way of advancing the story of the universe as well as the tabletop rules. Hudson says, do you think of yourself first career-wise as a toy reviewer, to a collector, tabletop RPG player, streamer, or author? That is an excellent question. And I guess, wow, that kind of depends on. It depends on the day, that's for sure. Some days I feel more like one than the other. Also, the pay for each one of those things can vary greatly, and some of them there's little to no pay. I'm going to put it out there in the universe that... Arsenal Roy, welcome. We're going to get to the brand new stuff. We're going to go back a little bit this week and talk about stuff leading up to the major big news. I'm going to put it out there in the universe that I am first and foremost an author. If you're new to this stream, which I don't get a lot of new people, but it happens every once in a while. I have a book. There it is. It's out. You can get it anywhere books are sold. I'm going to be trying to sell some of those books at a convention next week, in fact, and working on a follow-up book. So yeah, I'd like that to be my number one gig. I mean, yes, streaming has been really good for me over the last 6 years now. More than 5 years since I started off at Geek and Sundry. It's been a journey, that's for sure. At times there has been money made on that, and at times there has not been money made at that. Yeah, I don't know how much I should give away. Again, one day somebody's got to write a full accounting of what happened at Geek and Sundry, and I'll have some things to contribute to that. But yeah, I don't know. But definitely, toy collector is my number one hobby and fan thing for sure. That's a very good question. Appreciate that. So yeah, going on in the... Yes, exactly, an oral history, yeah, talking to people and just get their perspectives. Like, it doesn't all have to be super fact-based, but like, what did you experience in all of those events? oh, Ruiner, I've asked Zach to do such a thing, and man, the stories that Zach has are on a completely different level than what the rest of us streamers have. So yeah, recently we've been talking about Warzone Caradon in the larger Warhammer 40k universe, Forge World Metallica, so there's all this stuff going on, and the Intergalactic Space Pirate. Oh man, I wish. So they keep releasing these books. There are different acts. So again, it's part of a story that's happening, and you'll get acts, and each one will have different additional rules. Now, to be totally honest, this can get very tricky for players because, okay, you think, let's see, how do you get into Warhammer 40k and actually play the game? Hudson, we're talking about Zach Eubank over at Hyper RPG. So what do you need to play the game of Warhammer? Well, you need your models for your army. And again, there are different ways of collecting. Like, you don't have to buy a million models. You need the rule book in some way, shape, or form. You need the codex for your army. But then it gets tricky, because depending on what army you're playing and what units you're playing, you might need every single, well, usually the most recent chapter approved book, which has updated point costs, sometimes additional rules. You might need extra books like these that have special rules for your faction, etc., etc., etc. So while it's cool that these books give you more rules and things, it's also annoying because then you need more books to have at the table. Now, again, full transparency, for the vast majority of players who play this game, you have Battlescribe. Battlescribe is a community-driven, community-sourced app where you can build your armies. It gets all of the most up-to-date rules from every single source in it. You build your list. It tells you if you did it right or wrong. You print it out. You bring it with you, or you show it to your opponent, and you're good to go. At tournaments and things like that, you'll need to have the books, or buy the book and then have the access to that book on your official Warhammer app. So, yeah, no, that's great. There's a lot of people in the online streaming tabletop RPG community these days, which is good. We like that. So for this new book that's coming out, it talks about how, like, there are the main armies that are involved in this. We've got AdMech, we've got Death Guard, a couple of other ones. Now Sisters of Battle. But then it says, this book also collates a range of existing rules for Chaos Space Marines. And again, those have been dribbling out over different sources for the last year or so. So now these are all going to be in the new book. And it's a pain in the butt. Hudsonizer, good luck at work. Have a great rest of your weekend. But if you're interested in getting all of the rules for these things, yeah, you got to pick up these little books. Mission packs are really cool. They're little books, and they have exactly what it sounds like on the cover. A bunch of different missions, new ways to play the game. Different battlefield setups, different rules, different objectives, and things like that. So if you get bored by playing the same kind of game over and over again, get one of these packs, and it'll give you other ways to play. Stratagems, requisitions, agendas, other stuff for the Crusade version of the game, which is cool. We got a new Blood Bowl. Frank Stein is the new star player coming up, or available this week. White Dwarf, blah, 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 blah. Okay. We got that. July. Which we are firmly in July. It's the 10th already. Holy crap. Games Workshop has been doing this program for the last few months, where if you go into a store, an official Games Workshop / Warhammer store, you can get a free miniature. And then if you pay enough money, you can get a free coin. Patty, welcome. Melee Tau. Melee Tau. You can try. So if you go into an official Warhammer store this month, you can get a you can get a Stormcast Eternal figure. You're not guaranteed which one you're going to get. It's from just a regular pack. It's not like a unique exclusive miniature, but you can get a cool dude or lady in cool Stormcast armor. And then if you pay enough money, you can also get a coin to go in your cool coin collection. I don't have any of these coins. It's fine. Whatever. Even this Slanesh one, that would be cool, but I don't buy that much stuff regularly, especially at Games Workshop stores, where things cost a little bit more money than when I can buy it here at my store. But that's fine. Again, talking about the Caradon sector, these are some previews for this new book that's coming out. And yes, there are fatbergs. Floating fatbergs. There's an interesting discussion that happens online, and I'm sure that that book to put your coins in is another significant expenditure. without getting too much into what some would call SJW territory, and I am absolutely a social justice warrior. I will bear that name proudly. One of the criticisms that Games Workshop gets from more progressive people is sometimes with their models, with their lore, things like that. Games Workshop stuff, Warhammer stuff can be fat phobic, which is a relatively recent term, and it's interesting to hear those discussions talking about, like, you know, if you have a gruesome character or a gruesome model, a lot of gruesome models are fat, a lot of heavier characters are gruesome, so it sort of goes both ways. If it's almost always like that, that's not good, right? We want heroic and interesting characters to be all sorts of different shapes. We don't want any one body type to be good or bad, things like that. So it's always interesting when we hear about weird stuff like Fatbergs. And again, like, talking about this, obviously this is going to be a weird Death Guard and Nurgle gross thing that's happening, which is fine, right? There's reasons for that in the lore. It's not necessarily... Yeah, it says, pretty icky, we imagine. Well, sure. But yeah, there's Death Guard stuff that's like just flesh and ooze and all sorts of gross things that are happening. Patty, yeah. Love how Warhammer knows their audience, and it's like, coin collectors. Anything collector, though, yeah. If they started doing exclusive Warhammer guitar picks, every Warhammer player would go and try to get the guitar pick for their favorite faction, and then half of them would try to get them all anyway. Yeah, stamps. Like, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is, put anything Warhammer on it, and we will collect it. 100% for sure. So anyway, so there's a Fatberg clearance mission that you can do, and again, a bunch of other interesting missions. Meat for the grinder, hard landing, boarding action, cut supply lines, treacherous ground, etc., etc., etc. Ooh, bring down the batteries. And some of these missions are actually really cool because they introduce... I mean, honestly, look, the best part about missions and playing Warhammer is the narrative, right? Okay, I bring my army, you bring your army. Why are we fighting? Where are we fighting? What is this world? What's going on here? What's the story, right? And so some of these missions include enough story details and elements that you as the player can build up that story, or ignore it if you just want to play the game and not have any story and be boring. That's fine too. Well, you know what, Mukouch, that's an interesting perspective. There's... So he says, okay, what he finds interesting. People are upset because of fat shaming, but the fact that several factions are committing genocide and are autocratic is fine. Is that a U.S. thing? To answer your overall question, probably mostly. It's probably mostly a U.S. thing, but I imagine there are people in the UK, maybe even in mainland Europe, who also, will look at that kind of stuff. The more progressive we become, the more readily we are able and willing to put a critical eye to the things that we purchase and enjoy. I think that's always a good thing. I think we should examine, okay, I enjoy this thing, but why? What am I getting out of this? How can I make it better? What is this company telling us or promoting through this product? And how can we analyze that? I don't think any of that's bad. I mean, obviously you can take it to extremes, which might not be good. But, also, yes, there are... Not to go off on too many tangents, but there are certain things that are more readily acceptable in pop culture things than others. For instance, here in the United States, we are much more open and allowing for depictions of violence and basically all kinds of violence. But God forbid there's any sexuality or any nudity, even if it's non-sexual. That's a huge no-no. That's a very much an American thing. And yeah, it's just cultural mores and, you know, different ways of evaluating things. Ruiner, also a very true and unfortunate statement. U.S. loves genocide. There are lots of depictions of heroes who are involved in all sorts of horrible things, wiping out, you know, enemies, whether they're other humans or alien species, mutants, whatever it may be. And yeah, and certainly all of these, again, these criticisms or evaluations can absolutely be applied to Warhammer, and there's a lot there to talk about and to be concerned about. And again, like it comes up a lot, but like the idea of who are the good guys? Are they really good? Are they good within? Are they, you know, in universe good? Are they good from an outside perspective? Why do we play the armies that we play? What is problematic about the armies that we play? How do we reconcile that? Because yes, you can absolutely say, look, it's just a game. I'm just playing with little plastic pieces, and that's fine. But it's also good to acknowledge I'm playing plastic pieces representing a faction that is, you know, autocratic, theocratic, you know, commits all sorts of horrible war crimes and would, you know, exterminate anybody who looks at them sideways, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And at least acknowledge that. That's part of the lore for the game that you're playing. But yeah, anyway. Digressions. Interesting topics of conversation. We should never be afraid to have complex questions and dialogues about the things that we like. If we... Pirating, sure. Pirating for fun, pirating for other purposes. Yes, right. Pirating on the tabletop with orcs. Orcs make good pirates. But yeah, I'm not one of those people who's going to be like, oh, this is all silly conversation. Like I said, you can take it too far for sure, but I don't think it's ever wrong to bring this stuff up and have a conversation about it. As you know from me, if you've watched even like 2 of my streams, I frequently talk about the whole death of the author idea and how do you separate what you enjoy from a work versus who created it or who's involved in it. And you can do that with Warhammer 2. Or you could go the other way and say, well, what was Warhammer really created to be back at the beginning, and what has it turned into? Yeah, lots of interesting discussions to be had if you're interested in going down that route. Nothing wrong with the Tyranids. I mean, that is certainly an argument for sure. They just want to eat and make babies and feed their babies. So yeah. Okay, now again, we're going to talk about Beast Snaggas in a minute. I promise you. But this was a fun article. Games Workshop will put up these. They're sort of like a joke on listicles. Technically, they're listicles, but if you're not familiar with what that term means, ask and I'll explain it. But here we have 5 ways that Beast Snaggas prove squigs aren't just for biting people. And again, we'll talk about Beast Snaggas in just a minute. I know it's coming. But here we have all sorts of insane little creatures that hang out with the orcs. Yeah, for sure. Tyranids are the most honest of all the factions, followed by orcs. Yeah, there's no well, I mean when you get into gene stealer cults, then it takes a turn. But that's because you're mixing mixing Tyranids with humans. So of course, it's gonna get worse. I know these are there's so much fun stuff with the orcs already and in these new things. Yeah. So this is a smart weapon for this bomb squig, and yeah, you got to detonate that thing somehow. If you're not familiar with, oh yeah, and it says, so once per turn, when a unit with a bomb squig is selected to shoot or fire Overwatch, if it has any bomb squigs remaining, the unit can release one. When it does so, you can select one enemy unit, other than aircraft, within 12 inches, and roll 1d6, adding 1 to the result if the enemy unit is a vehicle. On a 3-up, that enemy unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. And they're each bomb squig is a one-shot. You can only use it once per game. But, wow, that's very powerful. On a 3-up, on a 2-up against a vehicle, D3 mortal wounds. Just have those. Within 12 inches, too. That's a huge range. A listicle is a list of testicles. That's right. For anybody who doesn't know the term, a listicle is a cross between an article and a list. It is very popular on websites and blogs and anything that's looking for search engine optimization, because it's very easy to pack in a bunch of your keywords, repeating the same thing over and over again, or the same keyword terms. Not to get too far into SEO, because it's super boring for most people, but every website does listicles. Top 10 this, our favorite 5 this, blah 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 blah. Those are all listicles. Ed Button. So yeah, so these squigs are genetically engineered to have a super hard head, and then they put a metal plate over it so it can smash things with its head. And again, basically it has we've seen rules like this before with what is it, like there's a Space Marine unit that has this, the ones that drop in. But yeah, essentially, like when you do a charge or a heroic intervention, you roll and potentially do some mortal wounds, because you're coming in so hot and so hard. Especially this one, just bam with his head. Okay, I love this one. It's on a new model that, again, we're going to look at in a second, but it's the targeting squig, which is somehow they took a squig and they fused it to a gun and some targeting apparatuses. So it's got the reticule directly on its eyeball. Very silly, very fun. Holding stuff. So here we have a squig that's literally like an IV bag. Sure. Squig drip. And then like the secret stuff, which again we'll talk about in just a second. Oh yeah, so then when new stuff comes out, they'll give it to in-house Games Workshop painters and to painters in the community to early, so they'll be able to paint them up and then have them like, look at all the things you can do with these new models. So for the new Dominion stuff, like, I mean, again, like, this stuff is just amazing, the way people paint. Lots of different ways of painting. I don't know what her name is, I apologize, but very cool here with the black and gold armor. Obviously this crazy base. Here are red Stormcast Eternals. Here are silver Stormcast Eternals. So again, just like amazing painters to look up to and potentially emulate. Find a new color scheme, new paint scheme that you'd like for your army. Because remember, in almost every case, you can paint it however you want. You don't have to do it the way it is on the box. Yeah, a lot of makes it just smaller. A lot of wear and tear and like rust on this one. That's pretty cool. Not how you usually see your Stormcast Eternals. They're usually very clean. Different versions of this lady. Her name is Yndrasta. So that's cool. And then, yeah. So I always like looking at these, even if it's not, even if these aren't models that I have or plan on getting, because again, just looking at any well-painted models, you might get ideas for color schemes and what colors work well together. You might see a specific color that you like and try to figure out, or if you go and read articles about how these people did it. Some of these people have YouTube accounts and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. You go and find out like what actual color paints went into these models, and then you can use those for your own hobby. So again, you can get lots of good ideas from this kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly, Zardoz. These are famous, you know, community members that you can go and follow. A lot of them, you can ask them questions. If they don't do tutorials on this stuff themselves, you can ask. People who are really good hobbyists usually are very free with their information on how they do stuff. They'll tell you about their techniques. They'll point you in directions for good tutorials out there. They'll tell you what paints they use. They're generally good about that. Not always, but generally. Yeah, it's like that's a cool color combination here. These purples and the greens. And then you got wild stuff like this. This lady does these really cool cross-hatching patterns. Her orcs have been featured, and there was a whole article just on her stuff. And then Midwinter Minis, when they were having their babies, they asked other hobbyists to do little video segments for them so they could put out more content while they were taking care of their little tiny babies. And so this was one of them, and she actually talked about, I don't remember her name, but she did a little tutorial on how she does this cross-hatching. It's very it's very complex and very time-consuming, but the end result is magnificent, even up close. But I mean, imagine looking at this from a couple feet away, just these beautiful colors and all of these little details. Super, super cool. For any army, really. Just get the right colors, right color combination. Even black and white, this would look cool. So, yeah, neat stuff. Ooh, look at those. Gotta get those ideas. Oh, that's cool. Love the purple. These highlights, so sharp. So yeah, I always recommend looking at these kind of articles. More dark, drab. The black is cool, offset with the green. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, your bright, shiny ones. Wow, they got a lot of people on this one. Oh, and basing, too. The sky's the limit when it comes to what you want to put on your bases. Terrain, snow, make swamps, fire, lava, water, anything. That's cool. I like the little skull peeking out. I have like a couple of basing materials that I just reuse over and over again. I've got some grass. I've got some rocks. Grass, rocks. Grass, rocks. Everybody gets a little bit of grass, a little bit of rocks. Ooh, that's cool. Yeah, that's definitely a lion breastplate, but the other one we looked at certainly looks more like a bear. Lightning effects, always cool to check out how people do them. Oftentimes with white and blue, but there are other ways of doing it as well. Cool. Okay, go. Now, we are going to talk about Inquisitors today. Partly because I saw this article and I thought, ooh, that'd be fun to talk about. So they did a little thing for Inquisitors. Are they evil? Are they really good at their jobs? You be the judge. You know, I'm going to save this for when we talk about them a little bit later on. Okay, let's talk about the big news. First off, we've known throughout for this entire week that today, Saturday, this morning, well, morning for for us here in the U.S., there was going to be a big preview. Something big was going to happen. We knew especially that it was going to focus on Orks, Beast Snaggas, standard Orks, etc., etc. And then, a couple days ago, the Warhammer Twitter account started going crazy, as Rabid Wombat was pointing this out. especially, that they were just starting to tweet out a bunch of stuff about new kill team something happening, and then we got this trailer and all this stuff happened. So it was, but not a lot of information. Just it was basically a preview for today's preview, and it was weird. And I don't know. Somebody hinted that the Games Workshop Instagram account put out some images that might have been they might have put those out too early, so then that triggered them like, okay, well, put out the trailer quick. Who knows? Conspiracy theories, whatever. But we did get some advance warning, and then we get this. So, kill team. All right. For those of you who are relatively new to Warhammer 40k, there is, or if you don't, if you're not familiar with it, remember that when Games Workshop has a game, they'll have other smaller versions of the game that you can play, oftentimes with very different rules, sometimes with slightly different rules, but to give you a different feel for the game, have smaller footsteps or footprints and prices and things like that to get people in, to get people using the stuff that they buy in more ways, because it gives you more value or more perceived value. So kill team. Oh, Zardoz, we have very little actual information. Very little. So kill team, the idea is that, yes, in Warhammer 40k, you're playing armies against other armies. In 9th edition, there are ways of playing fairly small armies, but you're still talking about, at least 4 units, depending on the army. Obviously, there are exceptions. If you're playing knights, you might have 2. But you're going to have a number of units. Each unit might be one model or a bunch of models. In the case of infantry, you're playing those units all together, things like that. There is this separate game called Kill Team. Kill Team has been around for a long time. There have been different versions of that, just like the big games. And the idea with Kill Team is you are playing a very small squad of individuals. So each model is its own unit, with its own stats, with its own abilities, with its own special rules. Basically. Its rules are based on 40k's rules, but with some very interesting and dynamic changes. Alternate things that happen, different ways of playing. Typically, your models are interchangeable. So your 40k models you can play in Kill Team, and any Kill Team models you get, they aren't really they're models that have been released for Kill Team, but you can use them in your 40k games. Like it goes back and forth. So it's a skirmish game. You need a board, or some sort of playing space. Terrain is highly recommended. You need terrain to play Kill Team. The more the merrier. Kill Team games thrive with lots and lots of complex multi-level terrain. There are rules that make it really fun to do that kind of stuff. Things like you can knock somebody off of terrain, they can fall down and hurt themselves, they can fall onto somebody else and hurt that person. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do in Kill Team. Kill Team, like I said, has been going on for years. The current edition it's decently popular from what I can tell, but it's getting a little long in the tooth as far as editions go. So now we have this. The ultimate reimagining of Warhammer 40,000's iconic skirmish game, Kill Team, is on the way. This is a brand new game, wholly redesigned to capture the brutality of special ops combat in the 41st millennium. Whether you're a raw recruit or returning specialist, if you like the idea of crack squads of geared-up operatives hunting each other through the bullet-ridden war zones of Warhammer 40,000, you're gonna love it. Kill Team is an action-packed, no-holds-barred, close-ranged death fest. And if you like the sound of that feast, your eyes on this. So, of course, the big news is this trailer. Which we can watch Sometimes victory lies not in the might of armies, but on the blades and valor of a few. Lord Commander Solar Macarius. That's just a flesh wound to an orc. Brave. And effective. Get the Wurrboy in there. Ugh. Ugh. Very grim, much dark. Yeah. So that was the cinematic trailer for the new Kill Team. Obviously, the animation is beautiful. They've got great people working on this. The big news, of course, is who that trailer featured. Yes, we had Ork Kommandos, which looked very cool. Really big, bulky orc types. Lots of fun details like the hats and the all the decorations and character things about the orcs. But of course, who are they fighting? The Death Korps of Krieg. If you're not, apparently Games Workshop is going in hard on Death Korps. Okay, so that was the big thing that happened first. So then we're gonna look at what was the full announcement from today. And there's a lot. So it was called the Octarius mission briefing, the preview for today. So what did this entail? All right, well, they live streamed it. We're not going to do that. New edition, best kill team ever. It's a big boast. A lot of people really liked this current version of Kill Team. So there was a Flash Gets Kill Team box that you could get, but you could also play a lot of different kinds of orcs in Kill Team. You could play Boyz, Boyz, play what was it? I think you play Ludas. Yeah, and then they did expansions, which let you play even more things in Kill Team, which again was cool, but it made Kill Team almost as complicated as regular 40k. So this is the Octarius box. That's the actual name of this this box set. I think this is just going to show off. Yeah, okay, this doesn't really tell us anything. We're just going to see what we get. All right, what's in the box? What's in the box? All right, we got a bunch of tokens. We get a core book. We get another book that's probably like the specific rules for these armies. We get a board. We get a bunch of terrain, bunch of orc stuff, and we get some models. We get some other stuff down here like a ruler, dice, cards, all the typical crap that you're familiar with. So, the terrain is great. Yeah. All right. Death Korps of Krieg. Let's talk about this a little bit. If you were watching Hyper RPG on Thursday night, you'll know a lot about this already, because this is the army that Bert played a couple nights ago. I'm going to give you just the smallest overview of these guys. They have a ton of lore. It's very interesting, so you can go and look it up afterwards if you'd like, or we can talk about it again on another future episode. Death Korps of Krieg. So these are the one of the most grim and dark of all grim dark things in Warhammer 40k. They're an army of yeah, Zach and his dice rolling. They are they're an Imperial Guard or Astra Militarum army from a specific planet. Things have not gone well for these people. Let's throw that out there. They've suffered horrible things, and the pain, the trauma of that is very evident in how they operate and their outlook on life and things like that. They are the meme dogs. Yeah, exactly. They're the meme, but it's actually based on the lore, is that they just want to die. They want to die in glorious service to the Emperor. There's all these jokes about how, what's the saddest Kriegsman is the one who survives the battle. They're all about charging just like this against tanks and anything else. They just want to die in battle. That's their ultimate goal. They have this very iconic look to them in the lore, in the artwork, in the miniatures. It's a combination of things, combination of visual elements from the worst and laziest backstory of GW. I mean, again, there's a lot more to. There's a lot of details to it that I'm not going into. But there's a lot more. Yeah, the gas masks, the very specific coats, and the helmets. There are elements here of World War One, like real world World War One equipment and other stuff. If you're unfamiliar and you haven't heard us talk about it before, this is a problematic army for a number of reasons. In universe, again, like it's just like super depressing, super grim, dark for some good reasons and some bad reasons. Well, sorry, which was the bold claim? I'm making a lot of bold claims. In the Warhammer community, this army, and a couple of other ones, not just this one, tends to attract the worst types of players. And when I say worst types of players, I mean fascists, Nazi people, like straight up, like terrible human beings. They look at something like this and there are people who get this army. They decorate them to look like with like Nazi colors and paraphernalia. Now again, what they're wearing is not Nazi stuff. It's just not, but not everybody is intelligent and learns history and will go and actually research those things. They just see this and they think, oh, cool, cool, brutal, human soldiers with, stuff that I can decorate, things like that. It does happen. When we talk about things like this, especially in the broader community, there'll be people who jump up and call this hyperbole and be like, nobody actually paints their stuff, with Nazi or other, fascist elements. They do. This is a real thing. It's not hyperbole. It's not. Yeah, exactly, Mukelch. They're not. These are not based on, Nazi gear. It's not. But people don't understand. Yes, I have seen armies painted with Nazi elements. I've seen them posted in groups. A good friend of mine, shared an image in a group of Warhammer people, and I'm not going to explain it, but this model that got a lot of attention because it was partly a joke, but it was well painted, and it got some attention in some Warhammer groups, but it was painted with certain super anti-Semitic and fascist elements to it, and a lot of people that were sharing it had no idea even, and were like, haha, look at this cool model. And I was like, I have problems with this. So yes, it's real. These things do happen. But again, that's a lot of shitty people doing things with models that are otherwise, the models are fine. Yes, the faction is super grimdark, but a lot of other ones are too. So, there's that. Now, again, the Death Korps of Krieg, the guys we're talking about, they have their own specific lore. They have a lot of fans who are fine and good. There's fiction for these guys. The faction has existed in Warhammer for a very long time, and you can play Death Korps as a full army. If you want to spend a lot of money buying the models on Forge World, over the years they've had a lot. That catalog has shrunk. Some are still available. And Death Korps is always one of those things that people are always wondering, okay, either... Everyone's always sure that either Games Workshop is going to suddenly release a ton of new models for it, or they're going to get rid of it forever and it's never coming back. It's one or the two extremes. Clearly, Games Workshop is embracing the Death Korps. They want to die. Yeah, no. Yeah, exactly. It's the lore is, like I said, there's more to the lore. It's complicated. Now, we have these models. Previously, all the Death Korps models are Forge World. So you might be thinking, well, if they're... So these are going to be plastic. They're going to come in this box. But what do we know about making molds and making miniatures? Well, we know a couple things. We know they are not going to go out of their way to make these molds if they're only going to use them in this product. Probably. Molds are very expensive. So to make these guys, it is very likely that these will be sold again in some other way. A box of Krieg, maybe a bigger box with some other stuff. Who knows? But it is highly unlikely that this Kill Team box set is the only way you're going to be able to get these models, because they got to recoup their costs for making those molds, etc., etc., etc. Again, as I talked about just recently, these are brand new sculpts, brand new molds, because they, as some people misunderstand, Games Workshop cannot just go and take a mold used for making resin Krieg and run them in plastic. It doesn't work that way. So everything about this is new, and these models are fantastic. They're amazing. I mean, look at the detail on these things. You've got, this cool guy here with the power sword and the plasma pistol. You've got a demolitions dude here. Lots of different things. Lots of interesting things going on. We've got the medic. He's got stuff. I'm going to mix up the pronouns because, whatever. You play these however you want. There's a medical goodie bag here. This guy charging forward with his bayonet. He's got some kind of a claw hand. Yeah, so because Krieg has a popularity with fans over the many, 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 many years, and because they're Forge World exclusives up until now, other issues that arise from that. And yes, number one, recasting. There are a lot of recasted Krieg models out there in the world. Most of them come from China and or Russia. I've seen some of them. Some of them are very good. Some of them are less good. But yes, they're arguably, the Krieg are one of the most bootlegged, recasted, factions that Games Workshop makes. They're also one of the most what's the right term for this? They're very often you'll see 3D modelers create STLs, 3D prints of things that you could use as Kriegsmen. So again, similar to the bootlegging, there's a lot of stuff that goes on with 3D models for your Krieg. So now it's going to be easier because you can get plastic ones. This thing up on top, you know what? I mean, that's what people were saying, that this is a shovel handle I'm I'm not entirely sure, but it certainly could be. I don't know that we've seen the back of this model to know 100%. There was there was this character in the animation, but again, you didn't see the back. One of the one of the memes for these guys, yes, is that they do love. Yeah, that's what it looks like. It looks like some sort of an antenna to me, but who knows? Who knows? Is that yes, they do love shovels. Shovels and gas masks are like the main things for Krieg. But yeah, I really like this guy with the metal hand. That's cool. Is he? Is it? This is a piece of paper, right? Like it's folding here, like he's reading the newspaper. Yeah, the antennas on some of the other guard stuff is really, super weird too. But yeah, these are great. He's also got a pamphlet. He's preaching. Maybe a map. Yeah, I mean you can paint it however you want. But yeah. But again, super detailed, very cool models. Got a grenade. The Zell. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, they're great. They're awesome. Typically, Krieg play very similar to standard Astra Militarum armies. They get a couple of special rules. They have some special units that other ones don't. That are just minor changes. Again, if you watched on Thursday, they've got veterans that have some other rules, like these guys right here. They do have horse back troops, which is pretty fun. So you can charge into the enemy on horses. Why not? Yeah, so they talk about how a whole squad of Death Korps of Krieg in plastic. Yes, it's finally happening in Kill Team. But again, I would... Oh, is that not... Oh, it's a club? Oh, okay. Oh, I see the top. Yeah, the wood goes all the way through. Got it. I didn't look at it closely enough. Cool. Trench Club. Close quarters combat. Yeah, I would be extremely surprised if we did not see these models repurposed in another package at some point. Probably not for a little while. Games Workshop is going to make it so that if you want these models, you got to buy the big box set. No. I'm always happy to be corrected and to be taught new things. Just do it politely. That's all I ask. That's all I ask. When we were doing Warhammer on Hyper toward the beginning of all that, we would get people coming in who were Warhammer experts, and they would be very rude about pointing out things that we were doing wrong or omitting or fudging for whatever reason. And again, you can point out things that I'm doing wrong or that I missed. Just do it nicely. Just do it politely. That's all I ask. It helps if I know who you are, though, and I know you're not being rude. Okay, and then the Orks. So I think that's about all there is to say about the Death Korps. I know, right, Patty? I'm so stupid. Whether now the big question is whether we're going to see. No, I know, Couch. 100%. I did not take that to be rude at all. It's all good. Now the big question is, are we going to see more new Krieg models? I don't know. That I'm not sure of. What would be really cool, and what would I think satisfy a lot of people, is if we got some sort of an army box, or even a start collecting that had just like a regular Lehman Russ, and obviously these sprues for these units, and then like an upgrade sprue of parts that Death Korps styled things that you could put onto other models. It's kind of tough though, because they've got their whole bodies are really, the coat is really unique too, not just the head. I don't know. It would be interesting. To cry some more. You think we will? I mean, it would be. They are popular. That is true. And again, if they're going to go to the effort and the cost of making these, yeah, we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see what happens with this. But these are first, and we're moving on to orcs, because we get, yeah, for whoever just most recently spent a ton of money on Forge World Krieg stuff, and now it's coming in plastic. Ooh, yeah. So Games Workshop has been getting hit with some facts and feelings about their limited stock and hurry, pre-order now, and all that kind of stuff. Some outfits have done entire videos delving into looking at stock numbers and shipping and distribution around the world, especially with the new Dominion thing, which apparently is still in stock and you can still buy it with the exclusive coins. Yeah, it's a lot. Games Workshop may need to tone down their wording a little bit. Okay, but we have new Ork Kommandos, and these are fantastic models. Just unbelievable. The amount of detail on these things, the character on these guys is just great. I mean, look at them. This guy is the best guy ever. Oh, did they say that they're going to be individual? Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, again, makes total sense. And again, that's typically what happens. Almost always. Hamburglar. So yeah, I mean, we can just bask in the glory that... Oh, look, just great. Super great. And again, I can't wait to see how people paint these things. Add their own unique touches to them. This is fantastic. The mask, the hat. I mean, it's all so good. Patty, that's a very good question. Last year, Games Workshop put out a notice that essentially said, we are for inclusion and diversity, both in our models, our storytelling, our audience, and there was their famous line was at the bottom, essentially like, if you don't agree with this, you will not be missed. Which was a nice sentiment, and we all shared it and talked about it. Whether they've followed through with that is something that one could argue. It came about mainly because there was he's still around, unfortunately. There's a very prominent YouTuber who does Games Workshop Warhammer YouTube content, and he's kind of a fascist, pretty much. And at times, Games Workshop actually worked with him and did stuff, and then they cut him off very abruptly and strongly, and that was good. We were all happy to see that, and then it became like, oh, Games Workshop going woke and all the typical bullshit. But yes, yeah, that guy. Anyway, that's where we stand. Yeah, again, the details on these are so cool. Yeah, he's got like is it a what would it be? A Swiss Orky knife or something? But yeah, there's so much cool stuff going on here. It's great. Please, the masks, so cool. What is this gun? What? I'm not sure what this is supposed to be, or if it's something new. Well, I mean, I'm gonna call you Two Cry. Oh, it's for okay, that makes sense. A breaching device. I mean, to be fair, part of that statement was about diversity also in their storytelling and their artwork and their models, which we have seen. I'm not saying it's perfect, but we have seen increases in that, so that's good. they could definitely be better about, you know, tamping down on people being jerks in the overall community, though, for sure. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I get it. So they, yeah, one of those RAM breaching device things. Cool, cool, cool. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. We got some rockets. Got this guy up here. What is happening? And there's more. Look at how many, all of these new guys. Got a flamethrower. This guy's got just ammo everywhere. Super great. Very, very cool models. Again, I cannot wait to see how people paint these things. Yeah, Patty, it's I mean, he's also somebody from another country, and so there were maybe I mean, it could be argued there were some language issues, but yeah, it wasn't good. So finally they got rid of that. It says this is the first time commandos have appeared as a plastic kit, and they're the most characterful commandos we've seen yet. Yes, they are. We love the nods to classic special ops archetypes, like the orc who loves his knives, and the heavy gunner who looks like he's about to empty his ammo reserves into the jungle at the slightest noise. So they're also, they're playing off of this 80s action movie riffs. And then, of course, we get terrain. Because, you really do need a lot of good terrain in your Kill Team games. Kill Team is typically played on a slightly smaller battlefield. I say slightly because it used to be a bigger change in 8th edition and before, but now in 9th edition Warhammer, a lot of Warhammer games are played on a slightly smaller table rather than the previously standard 4x6. Now a lot of games are played on a slightly smaller surface. So the Octarius, not Orctarius, that would have been really good. The Octarius sector in particular is littered with ramshackle greenskin settlements, providing all kinds of walls, barricades, and vantage points for a canny operative to exploit. It's awesome to see a whole battlefield of all plastic Xenos terrain, and so much of it. So you just get a bunch of orc terrain. And again, this is a starter, so it's not exactly a one-to-one comparison, but man, does this reinforce the fact that the last Kill Team box was trash. Frankly, it was just garbage. Necron scatter terrain, just a relative handful of models, a bunch of stuff people didn't need. All right, pre-orders will be available in August. And what? Surprise, surprise! The box set is available only while stocks last? Don't worry if you miss it, though, as Tukrai said, as all the models will be available on their own shortly after. So, there you go. And then again, we'll get more information. Because we don't know anything about the actual new rules for this new edition of Kill Team. Which, I mean, again, to be honest, that's secondary to all the great models, but it would be good to know how this new version is played. So you get your Death Korps team, you get your Ork Commando team, core book, the manual about Octarius, and again, we'll have the rules for these units, rulers and dice, cards, tokens, board, orc buildings, and scrap piles terrain. Very, very cool. Am I gonna get one? I don't know, maybe. It's pretty cool. Of course, they'll also be selling the core book separately, so, if you don't want these teams, you can still get into the new Kill Team. That's guaranteed. They'll sell a lot of this dice and card stuff separately as well, or bundled with the book, in one way or another. You'll be able to get a hold of it without buying the entire thing. Okay. Moving into Octarius. Yeah, Octarius. So what do we have? Octarius had been the center of a sprawling orc empire for thousands of years, until the machinations of a rogue inquisitor sent Hive Fleet Leviathan crashing into it in the forlorn hope of mutual destruction. This spiraling conflict now threatens to draw in forces from across the galaxy as the Orks and Tyranids bloody themselves against one another and war spills out into surrounding regions of space. This is the setting for the next major Warhammer 40,000 narrative expansion, Warzone Octarius. Dun 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 dun. So again, the basic story here is the Orks have been just knocking each other's heads in this sector for a really long time. A hive fleet has been sneakily pushed in that direction, so hopefully, yeah, Inquisitor Cryptman is, there's a lot of lore there, but essentially, go Tyranids, go over there, go kill the Orks instead of us, fight, but as it says, the conflict now threatens to draw in forces from across the galaxy, so while the initial rules will be a lot about Orks and Tyranids, we're also going to get other factions involved in this. So we can give them more rules, which they'll have to buy the books. That's why, that's how that goes. Yeah. So this is book 1, Rising Tide. Armies of that's all the new stuff. Ultramarines of the Tyranids. Yeah. We get some pretty pictures, which, whatever, it doesn't really matter. All right. Now, let's get into the Orks. The Orks are rampaging and an almighty wah is gathering momentum across the sector. The Beast Snaggas in particular are having the time of their lives, hunting down all manner of ferocious behemoths spawned by Hive Fleet Leviathan. Now the Snaggas are ready to break out their biggest weapons to crush Tyranids and Imperials alike. The big wah is here. Again, it's actually a controversial thing how you pronounce this word. Is it wah? Does it end with a G sound? Does it end with an R sound? Suddenly that's a thing? Who knows? Again, however you pronounce it, it's great. I love it. You do you. Doesn't matter. All right. First off, we have the kill rig. And just, it ends with an R. Hey. So, again, 2 weeks ago, there was one of these little silly videos that Games Workshop put out, and in it, there was a wah that ended with an R sound, and then that spawned this huge debate, and all these people popped up, and apparently people have been pronouncing this differently in different places and over the years. I never knew this. I've only ever heard people say it without a final consonant, just wah, and that's it. But there are other people. There are people who pronounce the G. There are people who say that it's the Orc word for war, so it should have an R sound. I don't know. You do you. It doesn't matter. Yeah, different dialects. Sure. What? Again, as long as you and I know what each person is talking about, pronounce things however you want. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. All right, so we've got this kill rig. It's completely ridiculous. What the hell are we looking at here? What is going on? in the grand scheme of ridiculous Orc anything, this is definitely approaching the top. All right. It's got a Trampla Squig and a Wurrboy up at the top. Remember, a new weird boy. It's a trailer being pulled by... Yeah, it's... the kill rig is a true engine of destruction that plows through infantry and vehicles alike. By amplifying the Psyker's wah energy through a contraption known as the Wurr Tower, its Beast Snagga pilots can blast crackling lances of pure Orky power at their foes. Now, as they show us in the pictures, there are different ways of building this and outfitting it. I mean, I don't know. We're gonna have to see that. Yeah, right. How do you say Wurrboy? I don't know. I'm just saying it the way it looks to me. endless amounts of details. You know, you got this grot sticking his head out. You can swap out the Wurrboy on top for some other weapons. And then this is the thing that's usually in the front. So you see, or no, that's in the middle of, I don't know. Like, you can build this thing in different ways with the things on the different platforms. So it says, certain Beast Snaggas are loath to have such a volatile creature riding with them. Instead, they fit extra decks and grab handles to transport hollering mobs of their clanmates into battle, transforming their vehicle into a hunter rig. So you'll have one version that's more of a tank with psychic blasts, and then the hunter rig, which is seemingly more of a transport. Who knows? It'll be very interesting to see the rules for these things as well. I don't know. Okay, and of course we need a new boss to go with our new Beast Snaggas. So here is the Beastboss. I mean, it's great. It's super fantastic. I don't know what else there is to say. The claw is rad. It still has a gun that's operated by the targeting squig. It's fantastic. Decked in the spoils of their greatest kills and rippling with muscles, scar tissue, and bad attitude, beast bosses lead from the front lines and look for the biggest, meanest prey they can find to bring down with their claws. A dream or a nightmare to paint. Yeah, lots and lots and lots of little details, for sure. These scales are so cool. I love it. Okay, now there's also a boss hut. Sure. So, all right. Now we have seen with the last few factions that have gotten refreshes and new models that there are typically they get like a fortification of some kind. Wurrboy, that's a great idea. Put this on a tank, or on a, or like on the top of a Stompa. Don't put a Stompa head on and put this on instead. Yes, please. Yeah. So most of the, like I said, the factions that have gotten new stuff have typically gotten some form of a fortification. So we've got the Hammer Strike bunker for the Space Marines. The Necron's got those steles. The Death Guard got that bong thing. What else? Is there another one? Anyway, yeah, so this is just, it's great. Again, just so many bits and things on it. It's got a bunch of guns at the top, and then clearly, I mean, seemingly, if you put a war boss in there, it's going to be able to, you know, project its voice and commands, maybe have some sort of aura effect. Oh, on a Lord of Skulls. Yes, there you go. So yeah, it's super orky, fantastic. All right, then we've got the Great White Squig, and its legendarily stubborn rider, who revere Maz Grod Scragbad as the toughest in the entire sector. So here is Maz Grod Scragbad and Big Champa. Ooh, would that work on a knight? It's probably too big to be on a knight, but maybe on a titan. Okay, so help me out here. What's the engine doing stuck in the side of this creature? Now I know it's Orks, so it doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong answer. But why does it have an engine in it? What's it not doing? Fair. Totally fair. Is it for the leg? Well, that's what I thought. Is it powering the leg? Is it somehow powering the gun on the other side? I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's ridiculous. Keep his heart going? Sure. It does something. It does whatever you believe it to do. This model, the rider, also is fantastic. I love how he's just kind of like, so you thought it would be a good idea to fight the orcs. Doing the Captain American lean over. Yeah, they're a force of nature in close combat. It's a good spearhead for a massed charge of squig hog boys. I like his tattoos here. Yeah, just so many details. Crazy. That's true. It's like your sad, pathetic monster doesn't have an engine stuck in its side. What are you even doing here on this battlefield? Yeah, and his cybernetics too, they go around his back and across his chest, like you can see them coming down on his belly. Interesting. And around his head too. Very cool. I love the mix. The fact that they took these new Beast Snaggas and they gave them, they love, monsters and beasts and trapping them, and they've got all this sort of tribal stuff, but they also have a bunch of just random cybernetic stuff, prosthetic pieces crammed everywhere. I do like that mix. I think it's a cool aesthetic. You can also build this, if you don't want this to be this specific character, you can build this as a generic Beastboss on Squigosaur, which is very different when it comes to that upper body here. It doesn't have that gun on the side. Otherwise, the Squig is very similar, at least from that side of it. It's hard to tell. So yeah. But I mean, come on. The named one is so much cooler. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's like, yeah, I can't tell if there's an engine on the side. I mean, if he doesn't have the engine, then it's like, well, okay, why? But it doesn't matter. Whatever. And then, yes, as we've seen already on the Gaunt's Ghosts box, there are new Boyz. Replace the eyes with headlights? I mean, hey, it's Orks. You can do it. For sure. Alright, new Boyz. Which is good because the Boyz that we currently have are very old models. They're not terrible, but they're definitely, they're feeling their age. And, I know, these Orks look a lot bigger. These Boyz, rather. So, it appears that we might be getting some scale creep on the Orks, just like we've had with Space Marines. We'll see. Again, the way these are put together, they look very much like that they're going to be monopose kits. Harder to customize, not necessarily impossible, but again, a welcome new addition to the line. Just give us some new Boyz. They're good. They're cool. They don't appear to have that as much of those weird swoopy back, butt sticking out, splayed legs kind of thing going on as the old Boyz. Have you seen a second edition compared to the box before these? Not lately. Yeah, and the arms. Yeah. So yeah, I think all the Ork players are going to be really happy to get these. You got a variety of weapon loadouts. Got rockets here. And then their leader. Ooh. Power Claw and a cybernetic hand. That's neat. Yeah, some different options for the knobs. Oh, the second edition's the same size as Modern Gretchen. Yeah. Scope creep, scale creep. It happens to games. Okay, now I teased in the Discord that there was a piece of information, a piece of news that was the most stunning, that was maybe buried within the larger preview, and this is it, that we are finally getting Deffkoptas, that you can just go out and buy Deffkoptas, because these goddamn models, the previous Deffkoptas, were only available in a box set that's been out of print for a very long time. And there were other models that you could get, but they were super shitty. And finally, yeah, exactly, John. I mean, the history of Deffkoptas is super dumb, but yeah, Assault on Blackreach was this. It was Space Marines versus Orks. It was a beginner, introductory set with, 2009. Yeah, I don't even know when it originally came out, but a while back. Yeah, and the Deffkoptas in there were great. They never released them separately, but now we have new Deffkoptas. Watch, oh my god, watch, in the new codex, they're going to be terrible. Don't do that to us, Games Workshop. Don't do it. As you can expect, as the way it sounds, they are Ork helicopters, very small and just loaded down with ridiculous weapons. They're designed to not only shoot at people with rockets or what's their other loadout, twin big shooters or something, whatever, but they also mow down their enemies with the rotors themselves. So Games Workshop came up with some interesting ways of attaching them to their bases. I'm sure people will customize these as well, beef up some of them, because some of these look pretty flimsy, or just remove them and use flying bases. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Oh yeah. Mech Boys have been working day and night and are at long last proud to unveil their mighty new Deffkoptas. Yeah. It's about time. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of model to be resting on such a little tree. We'll make it work. All the rockets. Stick bombs. Yeah, it looks like we might be seeing new loadout options too for bombs. Oh, I love the rotors with the little rockets on them to make them go faster. Sure. He's got a little targeting thing here. It's good. Yeah, some kind of big bomb options would be cool. So yes, Deffkoptas. Finally, we got Deffkoptas. What else? Yeah, coupled with the rest of the Beast Snaggas we saw during Warhammer Fest Online. So like the standard infantry guys, the regular ones on their squig hogs. Now is a very good time to be green in the 41st millennium. In fact, with a new codex, new boys, and a near endless swarm of Tyranids to fight, this might just be the best year ever for the Orks. We'll see. It'll be very interesting once we start getting rules for these things. Alright, so here we get a little bit of a better idea of sizing. So we've got a Def Dread over here compared to... Yeah, so this, the Great White Squig appears, at least, bigger than a Def Dread. So that's cool. This new wagon thing is enormous. And the hut, too, is pretty substantial. So again, we're looking at maybe about... Yeah, that's... Wow. Again, hard to tell exactly from this picture, but it looks good. Looks cool. Give us more Orks. And again, all of this is going to come with the new codex, so we're going to have new rules. The main previews they've shown us are that most Orks and Grots are getting a +1 to their toughness, which is cool. And we're getting some AP on the Champas. Now, they couldn't just leave it with a bunch of Ork stuff and a little bit of Krieg and new kill team. A new crusade dawns. With so many orcs on the way, the Imperium is going to need some expert Xenos killers on hand to keep them in check. Perhaps the Adeptus Astartes can lend one of their most famous chapters to the war effort. And we have a little tiny... It's not even worth watching, but Black Templars. We're getting something new to do with Black Templars. Who knows if it's going to be just rules or a new model or two. So there. Black Templars, also popular. Also some issues with the more annoying parts of the community. Black Templars are very, very xenophobic, very strong in their crusading and zealot ways, so it attracts a certain kind of fan sometimes. John, they will look like knights. They have some, more, what do you call it? More heraldry and things like that. Not Grey Knights, but knight stuff for sure. It would be cool to get a new Emperor's Champion model. Probably a Primaris one, if we're gonna be honest with ourselves. So that could be cool. Otherwise, I don't know what else we're gonna get new from them, unless they maybe a new character, something like that. That could be. Yeah. Anyway, very cool. Lots of exciting stuff. And yeah, as John said, so for the Mech Boys, the Orks Mech Boys, claims that they simply found and renovated a set of plans from the legendary conflict on Black Reach were met with much protest. Finally, Deffkoptas are back. And knowing Games Workshop, we had this massive preview today. Tons and tons of new stuff. And they'll preview some more stuff this coming week also. And there'll be another big preview next week. Because you got to keep that train rolling. Excuse me. But what are we going to talk about next? The Inquisition. Now, if you look on Games Workshop and you filter by Inquisition, you don't find a lot. We got a couple of Inquisitors. We've got a named Inquisitor, Kotiaz, with his Cyber Eagle. Let's take a closer look at that one. We have some very old Inquisitor models. This dude here with a combi weapon. We've got a Warrior Acolyte, a bunch of fire. This one is recently released. Ordo Xenos, Lord Inquisitor, Kyria Draxus, with a little dragon alien. We've got a Jokero Weaponsmith. Karamazov, which we'll try to touch on. There's a lot going on there. Eisenhorn, Greyfax, so some other specific characters, and then a generic one here, and some Crusaders. So what is the Inquisition in Warhammer 40k with the Imperium of Man? So yeah, there's Cyber Eagle. It's a cybernetic bird with two heads that does cool stuff. That's what Cyber Eagle is. And then and then this thing. Cyber with Psyber, because some Cyber Eagles can also boost Psyker power. It's dumb. I'm not gonna lie, it's dumb. So back in the old days when Warhammer was more fun and parody and things like that, one of the things we had were the Jokero Weaponsmiths. This is something that I'm not going to say the Games Workshop has tried to eliminate this from the lore. They're definitely not advertised very much in the lore, but it's an alien race of orangutans, essentially, who are really good at technology. I forget what they've got a weird quirk where they don't understand something about like conversation. I can't remember what it is. They show up in the lore and the fiction every so often, but the Imperium wiped out this race, kept a few of them around just to produce weapons and tech. Yeah, exactly, Ruiner. There's in the line of Warhammer Adventures books for young adults. There's a Jokero in that one. And yeah, they're just super goofy. They do have rules. You can actually play this miniature as part of your army. I don't think they're very good, but sure. And yes, this model is very old. Is it resin or is it metal? It's resin. Okay. Yeah. One resin Jokero weaponsmith. Anyway, Inquisitors. Inquisition. What is the Inquisition? Well, let's talk about it. So the Imperium of Man, we talk about a lot. We've got the Emperor, we've got the High Lords of Terra, humans who are in charge of stuff. We've got Space Marines. We've got Sisters of Battle. We've got the Astra Militarum. No one expects it. Excuse me. All right, the Inquisition is. Yeah, it's part secret police, part people like to this is like it's part CIA, part FBI. The Inquisition is out to root out and eliminate chaos, heretics, mutants, rebels, and Xenos from everything human. Not so secret sometimes. Originally, they were called the Holy Orders of the Emperor's Inquisition. There's a lot of real world iconography and stuff mixed in with this, more or less, depending on what you're familiar with, what you grew up with. More like the KGB, FSB. Yeah, that's true. The Inquisition was started by... Hey, it's a problematic thing that exists in the Imperium. So who started it? Malcador, of course. On orders from the Emperor, probably. But the idea was to... Look, the Imperium of Man is growing so fast, it has to deal with so much stuff, from bureaucracy to outside threats and inside threats. We need something to keep an eye on people. That was sort of the original idea. And I gotta tell you, in relatively recent Horus Heresy novels, they've laid the foundations for this, and some of it's been really cringy. Like when Malcador sets out to find 12 individuals with an inquisitive nature, and we as readers know that that's going to create the Inquisition. It's like, really? Really? Come on. That's dumb. What Malcador did, he got together some Space Marines, some mortal people, and they started this organization. And then the Space Marines would go off and found the Grey Knights, who we'll talk about a little bit here, and the humans made the actual Inquisition itself. Now, the end of the Horus Heresy, the Emperor gets all fucked up, gets installed on the Golden Throne. He ain't talking to anybody, and the humans are like, shit, now what do we do? Do we continue this Inquisition and sort of deify the Emperor and go down that path, or do we give up and go on a different path? And like, no, we got to keep doing this. This is very important. And so now the Inquisition is a huge and very powerful element of the Imperium. Excuse me. The Inquisition is divided up into a bunch of ordos. Ordo. Oh, now, the typical warning. We're about to talk about a bunch of things with a bunch of bullshit Latin names. It's fine. It's high Gothic in 40k. It doesn't matter. But again, typical warning. I may pronounce things differently than you've heard it, or you might hear things later pronounced differently than what I say it. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. But they have ordos, and they have big ones, and they have little ones. So the big ones are the Ordos Majoris, and the little ones are Ordos Minoris. You may have heard of other things in life that are Majoris and Minoris. Feel free to make any associations you would like. Eridance, yes, that is all of the Imperium in 40k. All right, so what do we have? We have 3 major Ordos, and they are as follows. Ordo Malleus, and if you know your Latin, that means hammer. These are the demon hunters, and this Ordo is all about fighting demons and chaos and extra Imperium threats. Oh, and each arm of the Inquisition has a military that's associated with it. Local friendly lizard, hello and welcome. First time chat from viewer. Happy to see you here. And if you are interested, we're talking about Warhammer 40k. We're doing a little lore dive into the Inquisition. If you are interested in such things, I talk about Warhammer on Saturdays and Wednesdays. On Mondays, I do mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, Norse, etc. And on Fridays, I look at toys and other things like that. If you'd like to throw a follow, if you're interested in any of that, that'd be great. Otherwise, just hang out. That's a brief thing. You got to do it these days because having a new person in your chat is a pretty rare occurrence. So anyway, there's a military force that's associated with each Ordo of the Inquisition. So the Demon Hunters, of course, their arm of the military are the Grey Knights. They hook up and go and fight chaos things. Then there's the Ordo Xenos, which you can imagine what they're out to fight and stop. They're the Alien Hunters, and they pal around with Deathwatch. Then there is the Ordo Hereticus, the Witch Hunters, and they fight traitors, heretics, witches, mutants, psychers, normal people doing bad shit, mostly. And they get to work with the Adeptus Sororitas. They get to work with the Sisters of Battle. Yes, there have never been dwarves in 40k. There never will be. Those don't exist. We don't talk about that. Although again, there are squats in Necromunda, so they do exist currently in games and in the lore. Okay, now small orders. There are a bunch of them. I'll go over a few of the more well known, and we're gonna get into some wacky shit here. Let me tell you. The Ordo Kronos. Their idea was, hey, this warp has some really weird elements to it, and sometimes when you go into the warp and you go to a place, it takes a week. Sometimes you go in the warp to go to that same place, and it only takes a day. Sometimes you go into the warp to go to that place, and you arrive there last week. What if... Now, hold on. What if we can figure out time travel using the warp? Okay, terrible idea. Terrible, terrible idea. But they're working on it. Who knows? One day they might crack it. Or one day they might have cracked it. Who knows? There's the Ordo Hydra. Naming conventions all over the place. Reused names? Sure, why not? The Ordo Hydra is, in the lore, descended from the Illuminati. Great, thanks for including that, Games Workshop. They're also out to destroy chaos. The Ordo Hydra is not really around anymore because at one point, the Ordo Hydra had the bright idea that they were going to connect all humans into a hive mind that would be able to fight off chaos. But other inquisitors heard about this, did some research, figured out that the that the plan that they were embarking upon would essentially probably just create a new chaos god and just destroy the entire universe anyway. So thankfully that was stopped. What else? We've got the Ordo Machinum. Again, garbage names. They keep watch over the Adeptus Mechanicus because they're a little suspect sometimes what they do out there on Mars. So we gotta watch over them, make sure they don't get corrupted. There's the Ordo Militum, which watches over the essentially all the human armies and navies of the Imperium. The Ordo Obsoletus. They look into unexplained phenomena and so-called miracles. So they'll go to a supernatural event and determine, did the Emperor do this? Or was this the result of some chaos bullshit? Usually it's Siege. And it's usually the latter. Then we've got a really cool pair that go very well together. The Ordo Originatus. Now, as in many, many sci-fi properties, we're dealing with the far future, they've forgotten a lot of things. Forgotten a lot of history, forgotten a lot of technology. So the Ordo Originatus looks for the history of mankind and forgotten information and things like that. Sounds good. But also, we've got the Ordo Redactus. And they're out to hide and obfuscate human history in case there's anything in there that the enemies of humankind can use against us. And yes, those two Ordos are working at exact cross purposes. To any outside eyes, at least. So watch out for that. Then again, more super goofy ones like the Ordo Scriptorum, and they watch over communications and records. And it's part censorship, because the Imperium does a lot of censorship, but it's also just because the bureaucracy of the Imperium is so massive, they need a separate, powerful watchdog organization just to look over and try to catch errors that come through the system. And in the lore, there are so many errors that happen. The best ones are when you get like entire Astra Militarum armies sent to reinforce a planet, and they get there and the planet is no longer there because it was destroyed. It was exterminatus or some other thing happened a long time ago, and they're like, all right, well, now what do we do? Go on to the next one. Find another world to battle over. There's the Ordo Sicarius that watches over the assassins. There's an unknown Ordo that's supposed to keep watch over the Space Marines. That Ordo might have been eliminated itself. There are a couple of new Ordos, relatively new in the lore. There's the Ordo Sepulturum to combat Nurgle and plague zombies and poxwalkers and gross stuff like that. And the Ordo Maledictum to work on the Great Rift. That, again, is a relatively recent thing in 40k. So what do they do? What do Inquisitors in the Inquisition do? Well, essentially, Inquisitors are all-powerful agents of the Imperium. And as powerful as they are, they're also all paranoid. Everybody is out to get us. There is taint, corruption, evil everywhere, and we have to root it out. And to be fair, essentially the weight of the entire Imperium rests on their shoulders. So they have to take very long views, big picture stuff, and make very hard decisions. What does that usually mean? Exterminatus is what it usually means in the lore. There's a lot of like, well, things are bad, so just we gotta wipe this out, start over. Start over somewhere else, of course, because you don't start over on a planet that has been exterminatused. Typically, when an Inquisitor wants to do something, even something really fucking crazy, the only ones that can stop them would be another Inquisitor, potentially, or in a rare case, like the High Lords of Terra can stop an Inquisitor from doing something. But it's pretty rare. Technically, they have a rank that's essentially equal to an Imperial Governor, an Astra Militarum General, and a Navy Admiral, or like a Space Marine Chapter Master, vaguely. But, again, like, the Inquisitors can call upon massive amounts of firepower and all sorts of stuff if they decide that they need it. Technically, all Inquisitors of full Inquisitor rank are equals. There's very little hierarchy among the Inquisitors. Once you become an Inquisitor, you can just go off and kind of do whatever you want and make judgments, and there's not many people to stop you. You can probably tell that Inquisitors are a major jumping off point for stories and conflicts in the lore and in the books and such things, and in the games too. There are some divisions, though, within the Inquisitors and within the Inquisition itself. There are Radicals and Puritans, which typically refers to their willingness to dabble in what makes the enemy powerful. So you'll have things like Inquisitors using Xenos tech, or using sorcery, or binding demons to use themselves, or even like learning Xenos languages and stuff like that. So there's some nuance, and again, they're not really factions, but it's more in the lore, especially than in the game. But there are like a little bit of factions within the Inquisition. Paranoid, crazy versions of the Spectres from Mass Effect. Partly, I think that's one way to look at them for sure. Again, like I said, they're essentially all powerful. They can requisition people, equipment, weapons, literally all the way up to entire fleets of Navy ships, Astra Militarum armies. They can requisition Space Marine chapters to come and do shit. Big time. And of course, most famous, Exterminatus. There's bad stuff on this planet. Wipe it out completely. One of their rare limits is that they cannot command the Adeptus Custodes, the custodians, because they're tasked with protecting the Emperor and doing specifically his bidding, so they can't be pulled off by any random Inquisitor wanting to do stuff. Primarchs, just remember that in current 40k, there's only one Primarch, and that is Guilliman. And he essentially is running things. So yeah, if an Inquisitor was doing something that he didn't like, Guilliman could shut him down. I'm assuming. I don't know if it's happened yet in the lore, but it'll probably happen soon. They'll piss off people eventually. And just like Judge Dredd, they are the law. They can summarily execute just about anybody, even up to governors and other high-ranking people. And they really, really especially love to execute psychers. It's like their favorite thing. But, on the other hand, they don't just deal out death. For low-level crimes against the Imperium, there's a whole plethora of options you have with criminals. So the Primarchs were created by the Emperor and his buddies to be the leaders of the Space Marine legions back in the Crusade days. And then in the Horus Heresy, a couple of them were killed, and then afterwards, a lot of them essentially disappeared. There are evil Primarchs that are still around, Chaos Space Marine Primarchs, but on the good guy side, there's just Guilliman. And he was just recently woken up after sleeping for thousands of years. Sleeping Beauty situation. So there are other good guy Primarchs that could return, but they've been missing for many thousands of years. So what do you do with criminals if they don't deserve to be killed on sight, which is rare? They can be subject to arcoflagellation. They can be conscripted into various military services. They can be put into a penitent engine and work for the the Sisters of Battle. all sorts of horrible, horrible things. Psychers get sent to the black ships. Just a fate worse than death for most of them. They can be the rare ones that survive that are turned into sanctioned psychers working for the Imperium, or they just get eaten by the Emperor. Interestingly enough, the Inquisition does a lot of mind wiping. So if you're innocent or useful to the Imperium and you encounter something that's really bad, but it doesn't affect you so much so that you're going to turn evil, they'll just mind wipe you. I forget what happened and continue working for the Imperium. Other times, they'll mind wipe you so much, they'll just give you a new personality and give you a whole new job. Oh, Erdinsk, how does a guy fused to a golden throne eat people? Psychically. The Emperor devours the psychic energy of 1,000 people a day, and they just die. He eats their souls, essentially. Grimdark. The Ordos, again, just because it's silly, they have stigma marks that they give to people, and then it just means, usually it means, okay, everybody kill them. So the Ordo Malleus gives out the Extremis Diabolis mark. The Ordo Xenos has the Xenos Horrificus. And the Ordo Hereticus is the Hereticus Abomini. Which, again, go kill these people. They're fair game for anybody. Good for the hair. Yeah, oh man, those souls. Delicious. And hello, Dreadlord Herc. Glad to have you here. The Inquisition can also declare Space Marines, whether it's rarely just like people or a unit or a small branch somewhere, or entire chapters, excommunicate traitores. They can declare Space Marines traitors, which means that everybody else then has to go and kill them. It's rare, but it does happen. So yeah, secrets, mind wipes for everyone. Now, again, especially for the lore and the fiction, within the Inquisition, there are a bunch of conclaves, cabals, cells. Nobody knows what each other's doing. It's all a bunch of weird stuff. So you'll have inquisitorial agents, so inquisitors, and then below them, each one will have a retinue of helpers. And these are a bunch of different acolytes and apprentices, and then from there, rarely an inquisitor will graduate one of those people to full inquisitorship, and that's how you get new inquisitors. There's not like a school you have to go to. Inquisitors, they just do their own thing and then generate new inquisitors themselves. So you have acolytes and apprentices. You have chirurgeons, which are part medic, part torturer. All sorts of different kind of familiar things. Servo skulls, the cyber eagle, like we saw with Kotiaz, things like that. You've got religious zealots that work for them. They do employ psychers. They do employ. Yeah, exactly. The Adjustment Bureau. They do whatever they want. They have soldiers. They have admech people when they need to do more techie stuff. When GW wants to get rid of a chapter and create a new one to get people to buy new models, that's not too far from the truth. So yeah, that's it, essentially, in a nutshell, that is the Inquisition. They do what they want. Now you can play Inquisition on the tabletop, usually mixed with Sisters of Battle or Space Marines or Grey Knights or Death Watch, something else. They're not an army that... They're not like... It's hard to make a big army of Inquisitor people. That's just not what they're for. So we've got a couple of, like I said, individual Inquisitors, but they work with other things. Now, real quick, last thing. There was this listicle that happened last week. Are these 4 Inquisitors evil or just extremely good at their jobs? Because again, a lot of Inquisition stuff results in Exterminatus, a planet all wiped out. Yeah, the witch hunters. Yeah, again, sometimes they, in the past, in different editions, they've had their own separate codex of things. Sometimes they're mixed with others. Just depends on the edition. Ooh, yeah, Deathwatch and Inquisition work really well together. All right, so we've got Karamazov. And yep, it's a dude on a big walking, part throne, part war death machine, part church. It's got the legs of a dreadnought. It's got scrolls everywhere. Yeah, it's got fire. He's got his sword. It's got guns. It's got this guy writing stuff down. There's a servitor over here who's really creepy. It's wild. Wild stuff. Karamazov is a character. He's been around for a long time. It's got a Melta situation going on over here. So here's some backstory about famous Inquisitors. And again, these are really brief. Sitting atop the massive throne of judgment, Inquisitor Karamazov ruthlessly purges any who would seek to upset the delicate status quo of the Imperium of mankind, and we do mean any. Karamazov cemented his hard-hearted reputation when he cruelly tortured and burned a humble and charismatic preacher who had led a popular revolt to overthrow a corrupt cardinal, ignoring the protests of both the ecclesiarchy and his fellow inquisitors. So yeah. A revolt happened that was, by all accounts, fair and needed. But Karamazov heard of this and burned that guy, tortured him and burned him alive. Cool. Inquisitor Quixos. The legendary Inquisitor Eisenhorn, along with a number of his colleagues, hunted the renegade Quixos to bring him to justice after a long and slow fall from grace. Because that's the thing. If an Inquisitor goes rogue, they still have all their power unless somebody else goes and stops them, and it can get real, real ugly. Yeah, they can murder each other, Eridanus. It does happen. Or more likely, one Inquisitor will go and get others to join her against the one that's gone rogue. Defiant to the last, Quixos claimed to be creating a new type of weapon that could seal the Eye of Terror forever. However, his fondness for demonic henchmen and proscribed technologies meant that no other Inquisitor could possibly back him, no matter the truth of his claims. And again, there are most of these are in fiction and stories and books that Games Workshop has put out over the years. Inquisitor Dark Hammer, which is the real name of a real character in 40k lore. The puritanical zeal of Inquisitor Emil Darkhammer inspires some of his peers and disgusts many others. But his detractors and champions both agree on one point. Darkhammer loves to use the rite of Exterminatus. He's a big fan. He's said to have destroyed dozens of worlds, consigning many billions of innocent citizens and entire armies to oblivion in order to eradicate what some see as only minor threats. Cool, cool, cool. Ooh, this one's a good one. Inquisitor Rassilo. Adamara Rassilo brought a Drukhari homunculus to Holy Terra in an attempt to coerce it to repair the failing Golden Throne. Needless to say, this didn't work out very well, and her plans were foiled by a member of the Adeptus Custodes and another Inquisitor, Erasmus Crowell. Chris Wright tells the story in the first part of his Vaults of Terra series, The Carrion Throne. Yet you don't bring in evil aliens to work on the Emperor's big chair. Not a good idea. And then, alright, so here's how Games Workshop sums it up. It's safe to say that some Inquisitors can get a little carried away, wielding their almost limitless authority to deadly effect. Maybe it was a bad idea to trust them with so much power. And then again, they lead it into, there's going to be one of the animation series on Warhammer Plus is going to feature an Inquisitor. Ooh, how do I go back to... Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yes? Transform. No! Hold on. Give me 1 second here. Okay, cool. And... back. Hey, that worked out pretty well. Dreadlord Herc, you're not wrong. Exterminatus is a quick and easy solve for whatever is bothering you. And yeah, so if you're not familiar with that part of the lore, if Inquisitors know that something bad is happening on a planet, they'll go and do an investigation, hopefully. But if they determine that... hey, Emily! If they determine that the problem is too widespread or too insidious... they just order the planet to be destroyed. Or again, Exterminatus takes several different forms, but all of those forms involve every living thing on the planet being killed and rendering the planet itself uninhabitable. Sometimes the planet itself is actually destroyed. Not always, it just depends. There are various ways of enacting Exterminatus. Right, Erdansk, or if they just feel like it. It happens. It happens. So yeah, so that is a rundown of... Ooh, Ruiner, that's a really good idea. No, I appreciate that. Yeah, Rogue Traders. We'll talk about Rogue Traders. It's another weird... It's niche, but it's a cool part of Warhammer 40k, and it's a cool part of the in-universe lore, and an interesting part of the history of Warhammer 40k and how we got there. Because when Warhammer 40k first started, it was actually called Rogue Trader. That was the very origin of it. And it's also, there's been other versions. Has anyone tried to Exterminatus Terra? I mean, probably. But no, we can't do it. The Emperor's there. The Emperor's light will cure everything eventually. Hopefully. So we went through a bunch of news, talked about new models, new kill team coming. Yeah, the demons in the webway. Gotta figure out what to do with them. It's a bad scene. The whole webway garbage. Fucking Magnus. Always. If you ever hear somebody say Magnus did nothing wrong, just smack that person. Magnus did everything wrong. Yeah, I mean, unless you're on the side of the demons, that's true. If someone is interested in the old Warhammer 40k role-playing game system, currently it's Wrath and Glory. It's put out by, what's the name of the company? Cubicle 7, something like that. But the previous one, which is no longer in print, there are places where you can access that content, let's say, without having to chase down and actually buy the books. I may have heard of some such places. You never know. Oh, geez, $200 on eBay. Wow. That was a much beloved entire system, and some of those books people really, really liked. But yeah, to get the actual thing is not going to be easy these days. All right. Yeah, and then we talked about the Inquisition and the Inquisitors and all the crazy shit they're up to. Now, I leave you, my friends, with this. Whatever you're doing tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific, you need to stop, drop, and roll yourself over to the Home Buddies Discord and join our watch along as Jessica Lynn Verdi, with me there as support, Jessica will be watching with all of you the cinematic masterpiece known as Human Centipede 2. Folks, you don't want to miss this. You don't want to miss it. I'm telling you. You don't want to miss it for the cinematography, for the acting, the writing, for the reactions, for the sound design of the movie is really the sound design is something else in that movie, let me tell you. Masterpiece. I've seen it before. I'm watching it again tonight. Very much looking forward to it. Dreadlord Herc, I love that. Dreadlord Herc would rather fly through the warp without Geller fields. And if you don't know what that means, it's essentially diving into hell without any protection. Yes. If you feel like joining us and you're up to it, I certainly would never force anybody, but I'm sure we'll have a good time. You could just listen. I know that might be worse. I mean, so Aridance, there is a goal, there is an incentive that's happening on Jessica's channel, and if we reach a certain amount, we will be doing a watch along of Dark Crystal. I have okayed this. I see this as a personal challenge. Yeah. Arsenal Roy, the whimpers, the squelches, the gurgles, the splats. It's there's a lot. I apologize if you're squeamish and I'm affecting you adversely. I just like to joke around. Oh, right. Let's find somebody to raid. You know, it's usually one to watch without audio. Interesting. Emily, that's interesting. I imagine that varies depending on the people and the movie. But yeah, for some, I can definitely see that for some people. The audio is really, a lot of times the audio is what really gets you. Yeah, for sure. Just the sounds, the squish, the tear-in. I know, you know what, they say to raid people who are in your lane, who are bigger, but people never actually seem to care. So let's raid friends. Right? Let's do that. Oh, yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, music in horror movies, crucial. Gotta have good music. Tension, yes. My wife and I, we watched a movie called Aqua Slash. You've probably never heard of it. It was a low budget, sort of a slasher movie. It was really weird. I guess it's a slasher movie. It took place at a water park. It was not good, and it's partly because it was very frustrating. I'm a horror movie fan, love horror movies. Aqua Slash set up this horrible thing that was going to happen to people in a water slide. I'll put it that way. Early in the movie, and then dragged out interminably a bunch of dumb characters with dumb dialogue, and we were just waiting and waiting and waiting for the thing to happen. Now, for a low budget movie, the payoff was not bad. There was blood, there was guts. It was a good time for everybody. But yeah, and that movie was like an hour and 20 minutes, and it felt twice as long because of just the incessant talking by these terrible characters. So I don't recommend that movie. It also, to be fair, it bugged me a little bit because I had what I think is a really good idea for a movie that takes place at a water park. I have a really good outline. I haven't written the whole script yet. I don't know. I may have one day go back to it, but my version would have been way better than this one. It's called, here, I'll tell you, everybody. It's called Yes. Aqua Slash. Yes, Emily. That's a good name. I like as a horror movie title. That's a good one. Not as good as the name for my movie, which I don't have to be. That's not like any of you are gonna rush out and like try to steal my idea. So my movie, ready for this? My movie takes place at a water park that's been shut down for weird reasons. But kids go in. Kids, teenagers, go in to play at night, and things happen. And my movie was called, my script, Splish, Splash, Die. And you can just imagine all of the horrible things that could happen to people at a water park. Or I don't know, maybe you can't, but that's what I was doing. I was imagining all sorts of horrible things that could happen. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I don't know if I'm ever actually going to finish writing that one. It's been a while. I have written 2 screenplays. Again, like, they're not going anywhere, but I did write them, which was fun and very, very interesting, challenging projects to do. And then I have Emily, no. But yeah, and then I've got a couple of I had a couple of other outlines. I have a really in-depth outline for a screenplay or a story, whatever, a retelling of the Odyssey that takes place in modern Los Angeles with college students. And man, did I go like very in depth with references and characters and plays on names and events and things like that. So who knows, maybe one day I'll return to these things. But yeah, I wrote 2 screenplays. One of them is called Zoo, and it's about a zoo where the animals go crazy and start eating people. Yes, you may be familiar with a novel called Zoo and a TV show that came out that were all similar to what I had done. This was a script I wrote years and years ago. No connection, obviously, but it was a bummer when I was like, oh, cool. That was sort of what I wrote. Zoo is a good one. There's a bunch of Zoo stuff out there, and then what the hell is the name? Oh, Ghost Yacht was my other screenplay, and this was had the idea for that one back when Ghost everything was the rage, right? We had what was it? There was Ghost Rig. There were a bunch of Ghost things, so Ghost Yacht was the one that I did. Ghost Dad. Okay, Emily, thank you. If anybody hears these ideas and would actually like to read these, I wouldn't mind sharing them. So because again, it's not like these things are not going anywhere in any sort of capacity. So let me know. I gotta say, again, I've been a long-time horror fan, all that kind of stuff. I have some elements in both of those screenplays that I think are fucking brilliant. On the whole, they might be trash. And whoa, Savage Punch, thank you for that. On the whole, like, I'm not saying that they're good. I know my dialogue writing is crap. That's a very difficult thing to learn, how to write dialogue. But I do have some gems in there that I'd love to see on screen one day. So, all right. I don't want to get too involved in this. and anybody who needs to go, obviously, leave, go do something else. So, Ghost Yacht. Kids, obviously teenagers, they go to rent a yacht for the weekend. But this yacht, the gimmick, and you can do this, you can rent a yacht, right? So the gimmick, why this yacht is cool, why people would want to rent it, is that part of the yacht is built from actual pieces of a shipwreck that was said to be haunted. That's like, like the gimmick for it. and it was a pirate. It was a pirate ship. I'm remembering the details as I talk, and they were rum runners. These pirates. So the gimmick is these kids go out on the ship. They bring in a ton of alcohol. They're drinking, and they get drunk. And the boat wobbles, and one of them drops a bottle of rum, and it breaks, and you see the rum seep through the floor, drip down, and drip onto these timbers that are part of the boat, and then that is what summons the cursed pirate ghost whatever is from the yacht, which again I thought was pretty cool. So yeah, who knows, maybe one day I'll go back and revisit these things, and now that I know more Hollywood people. And then they come up and they, of course, murder everybody. Yeah. The rum! Not the rum. We are going to raid. I know, lots of rum jokes and references. Alright, like I said, we're not gonna raid Warhammer, people, because nobody cares. We're gonna raid our good friend Coleman. Hopefully he's still streaming and not about to log off, which often happens, but that's okay. And he is playing Batman Arkham something, some Batman game. I don't know. There are lots of them. Batman Arkham something. Let me make sure that is cool. Arkham Asylum. Good. Thank you so much for hanging out with me, all of you. You're my favorite community in the world. You're all my friends. Have a great rest of your weekend. If you want to come and watch Human Centipede 2 with us tonight, that'd be awesome. If you don't want to, totally understandable. Yeah, thank you, Emily. Yeah. I am notorious for, I'm going to stop the stream now, and then I'm going to talk for another half an hour. Then I'll stop the stream. I will be back Monday morning with Mythology. We're getting so close to the end of Aeneid. It's so good. Join me for that if you would like. Otherwise, I will talk to everybody later. Twitter, Discord, all the usual places. Go say hi to Coleman. Tell him he's awesome, because he is. Okay, bye.